Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today we have a mess. Let's see if we can't make something out of it. Let's get started. I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube and I've been meaning to design one myself. So between the two, we will be making a cinder block stove. What you'll need is at least 5 cinder blocks, at least for my design, and I'll show you what that is. Have some spares if you need them. Luckily, we were able to source these off of Facebook Marketplace for free. While Facebook is an evil corporation, I do appreciate their free site. I think these are like $2, $3, $5 in Biden's economy, dollars each. So, source the price yourself in your local area. I've never been a big grill guy, barbecue guy. Don't really care for it. Having to get the barbecue barquettes or whatever the hell they're called it seems more work than it's ever been worth. So this is going to be essentially a rocket stove. And I already had this concrete slab when I first moved in. There's a chicken coop here. So this is pre-existing. It'll mitigate the risk of damage and fire in the area. And then as you can see, all the twigs and branches and wood and all that I have can go ahead and feed this, and it will feed us. Let's go ahead and get started with the basic design. So as a rocket stove, you're going to have a air intake and then the chimney to exhaust out. At the top of the chimney is where we're going to be cooking the food. So what I've devised is something like this. You're going to have the one block sitting sideways. You're going to have this block on top and flush against this side. Up against that side is this one that's going to be standing upright. So we have a system like this. What we're going to be doing is breaking this portion off, and then if you want to, we're going to be breaking this portion off. What that's going to allow is a double combustion chamber, double chimney, double the cooking area. So what you could do for simplicity is just break this wall. That's going to allow the air to come in this way. All the sticks and stuff that you feed from the top and you feed from the side will burn. And then a single chimney block will be your burn surface. Or if, again, 1, 2, 3 blocks down, I break through that bottom wall, now both of these can act as a burner. And I can cook a larger pan. I can cook 2 separate pans, this, that, the other. The other benefit, if I get a piece of tile that I believe I have somewhere around here, I can cover off this portion or this portion, and now all the heat is being diverted into one, or it's going to get faster with less energy by just burning on one, cooking the food a little bit more efficiently. But we do have a large cast iron pan and a couple of cast iron Dutch ovens. The more heat over a larger area is going to cook it more thoroughly, more evenly. So decide how you want to go about it. I suppose if you just knock out this wall, you can always choose to knock out this one. If you knock out both, then you're going to have to replace this one brick and try again. But that is the basic design. At this height, well, let's see. They appear to be maybe 7 inches tall. So you have 7 times 4, going to get you just shy of 30 inches. It's probably just short of my waist height, but this is a pretty decent height. Even if I was cooking on the flat surface, if I'm cooking in a pan or something, I'm going to be up here. So all that to say, I'm not up here trying to stir. I'm not leaning over trying to stir. Try and add as many bricks as you need to bring it up to your height. Another thing to consider is most of our wind comes from the side here. So I am having my air intake up top. What we are going to do is again punch a hole through here and then punch a hole through here. This bottom one, you can keep your fire starter, your lighter, stuff like that if you want to. And then the benefit with this block being sideways is as you break up sticks, you can keep them in here. You can have smaller ones for starting, larger ones for keeping the fire going, kind of thing. And this will keep it off the ground. It's kind of sort of curved, so it will allow water from rain and snow and all to pool out, and you have some ready to go firewood right there. So that's what we have. Let's go ahead and unbuild it, and I'll show you that brick that we're going to be breaking. Here is the brick we'll be breaking. Again, we're doing this surface. I had the pick of the brick. Haha. This one, you'll notice, is not a flat, flush surface. Either is this one. But on this edge, it is. So my hands are kind of tied. I do want a flat mating surface here. And then I have a trick that I'll be trying to fill that in on the cheap. But this is a thicker. This is about 1.25 inches versus maybe 1 inch. So it's slightly thicker. This is where the majority of the burning is going to be happening, down here where the air and the sticks meet. So having the thicker wall is probably better. Unfortunately, that means I have to make 1, 2, 3 wall cuts because this is a double lined versus a single line. So these are all things to consider. I can always move this later. What I want to do is I want to keep this wall intact as best I can. So I want to break here and here. It doesn't have to be completely open. I'd rather have structural integrity than completely open, especially on this one. What I'll be doing is you can use a reciprocating saw, I believe, if you have the appropriate bit, which I do not, or a angle grinder, which I believe I have cutting discs. I do not believe that they are rated for cinder block. So what I'll be doing is a negotiator here and a piece of rebar here. And if I fracture it at the appropriate places, this is going to be very strong but brittle, so it should break. If it does, aces. If it doesn't, I can always go grab another brick, but let's see how well this works. I'd like to see how simple and cheaply this can be done, because you could always go out and get mortar and have a concrete truck show up and insulate it and do all this stuff, but that kind of defeats the point. So let me see how well this works. Making sure it is on a flat surface. This is 12 strikes with just the sledgehammer, and you'll see we're probably 1/3 of the way through, and it's breaking in the center. The more I do it, the more of a curve, a bowl it's making, so it keeps glancing the hammer into hitting where I want it to. So we're going to hit it a few more times on this side, flip it over, try it again. We have the rebar to clean up any pieces we need to do. This is a lot of force in a large area. With the rebar, it's a lot of force in a small area, so we could do some cleaning with that. But so far, it seems to be working with just a sledgehammer, so let's get it done. As I am learning as I go, it occurred to me that right now, the block is still structurally intact and that I haven't defeated this. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on the center portion. That way all 4 walls are still holding the brick together. I can break this out of the way and then break this. The risk is if I break this one first, every hit here could start fracturing here and there, and it's more likely to fail. So I'm going to go after the center first, and then I'll complete this edge. Astute observers will notice this is a different brick. So hammering turns out on something very brittle, turns out breaks it. So we are going to the angle grinder, and we're just doing very slow notching. It's actually cutting pretty easily. So with an angle grinder, you need to be to the side of it. Don't look down the edge. You're less likely to catch rocks and metal and sparks and all that being blown back in your face. So cut like this, not in line with the blade, or having your arm on the other side of the blade. We're going to go ahead and notch this. We're going to notch this. Hopefully, depending on how long the blade holds up, we should be able to do the majority, if not the entirety of the cut. If not, we're going to weaken it so that when we give it a couple whacks, it'll cut more cleanly. With about 10 minutes of work, we actually got it cut pretty decently. I wonder if it'll have some flex to it. Not quite yet. But what I've learned is this is just a metal disc. But what I'm doing, and you can see it's cut in there pretty decent, I'm notching by dragging up on both ends and then dragging up on both ends. It cuts by speed, so you don't want to sink it in there and let it start bogging and binding. And you also don't want to just let it sit there and slowly start dropping in. I'm finding by going left, right, left, right, left, right, instead of cutting a flat cut, I'm doing a rounded cut. And that's more surface area, and I'm slowly notching it. So I don't know how well it'll show, but I'm pretty clean cut here. And the deeper down we go, the shallower it is. I'm just working my way. At this point, I'm essentially bottoming out on the tool, right? So I can't go any deeper from the top. So since I got that notched, I'm just starting to groove and cut like that. And if we looked at it from the side, it's essentially going to be a triangular cut that I'm making. So slow and steady wins the race. This is stone, right? Man-made, but it is stone. So it's not going to cut quick. It is throwing powder and dust everywhere. Pro tip, take your watch off. I do have glasses. I do have a mask on. I recommend you do the same. But you can see it's actually cutting pretty decently. And it's going to be a nice clean cut instead of a bad break. So we're going to continue notching this one, and then we will continue to that one. I may not want to go all the way down. I may see if I can't cut across that or just break this portion off. It doesn't have to be all the way through, and that would continue to provide some structural integrity. So that is progress step number 1. Let's see number 2. Okay, so I believe we're done with those cuts, and you'll see that we cut probably 4 or 5 inches down. It's easier to see through here. So I'm hoping there's really no way I can get the blade in there and notch it. So I'm just gonna try and whack it and see if I can't just knock this tooth out and clean it as we go. So before I defeat this structural integrity, we're gonna give that a try. A whack from a crowbar, and this tooth knocked out quite nicely. So we're just going to leave that as is. We're going to continue cutting this guy. Well, someone's getting life flighted, but I'm making progress. Bloop. So a reciprocating saw, you will be sacrificing a blade. And I say that, it actually seems to be maintaining its teeth. Cut quite cleanly. See. So that is where we're at. Gonna want to be very careful because now half the block is unsupported, but we have very clean channels on both sides and here. So that's where we're at with that. I may have a use for these. Actually, I definitely should have a use for these. We'll cut back and see if I'm lying right now. But let's go back over to the rest of the stove and start assembling it. All right, so we're gonna move this out of the way. Basically what we have is the top hole here will be the air intake. Will allow you 2 burn chambers. And now we can that one on top and lined up. We want to keep this here for the structural integrity, especially since we're stacking these not light blocks on top of each other, but also it's going to give us 2 different chimneys that we can stack with wood. And you'll see again the light right there is from the air intake. With this stick, probably 20-30 minutes in cutting, honestly. There is a technique to it. Once you learn it, I mean, you'll see your blade just start dropping through this stone. Basically, as I said before, what I did is the reciprocating saw would go like this. I would cut like that, and then like this, and then like that, and then like this, and then like that. So what I'm doing is I'm knocking this inner edge into a 45-degree slope. Then this edge, which is now at the top of that 45-degree slope, is going to be much thinner here than the thickness of this. So when I drop the blade down, I'm only cutting half the stone, 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 and it cut significantly. Like I could start seeing the saw just dropping as it started cutting its way through. The other benefit to having 3 bricks, those are the ones, for the chimney is I can now cut wood, break wood to this length instead of having to break the sticks into smaller pieces, which means it'll be less stick breaking less often. They can be longer, which means I have to restock it less often, and it just makes the whole system easier. And again, I have 3 ways of burning. I can burn like this, 4 ways, like this, and this, or by putting it in through here. Now you'll notice we have a bit of a hole here, and I'm going to be coming up with a fix for that. My understanding is I can use the chimney to fix the chimney. So just by mixing water and wood ash, you can make a pretty decent concrete. This isn't really going to be any kind of heat. This is more the air intake, with more of the heat being up top in the combustion chamber. But I should be able to slag that pretty good. I'll probably fill it in with some rocks or something and then use the ash cement to fill that in, as well as if I need to, I was either going to use like Play-Doh, or I'll use the wood ash and put a little bit as mortar in between these and recompress them into place. But this should work perfectly sufficiently for what we need. Let's confirm that. Nice. For the time being, we have a brick right here. We have fire right there. Fire was started through here. There's a nice little thing too. You can move this out of the way to load the bottom of the rocket stove to then put that back. We got a good flame. Using a spare piece of tile, I can block off that second chimney, assuming I'm not using it. Good amount of heat coming from the bottom of that, so we can block that off. And if we were to put a pan on here, it would be at an angle that would allow the heat and air to continue exchanging. I also brought these bricks originally out here so I can use them to block the air intake. I'll need more, of course, now that that one's being used, but I can now use this to limit and adjust the flow rate, the amount of air going in, which is going to control the burn. So all in all, seems to be working quite nicely. We'll get it up to heat and finally cook the son the hot dogs he was asking for earlier. All right, so again, using this tile, I can block off one or the other or half of both. And we've got a pretty decent flame going. These sticks have been rained on as of this morning and are still producing plenty of smoke. And you can see down at the bottom there, embers. You can see too, fire is coming through that bottom bridge that I broke out, the middle section that I cut out on that bottom one. And you can see that flame is working its way over as well. So what you could do, and what you'll see I'm doing, these are much larger, thicker, wetter branches versus the twigs and all on this side. So use this one to get it started, twigs, and smaller ones to, again, get it started. This one, this can be drying out and eventually will catch on fire itself. You can use this to control the airflow topside. And you will see that if you block it too much, it'll start smoking at the bottom. So you get a bit of a visual indicator on how much you need to burn. And then you can also do a lazy fire in that I don't need to break this whole stick. I can shove it the length of 1.5 bricks into here and just let it sit. And as it starts burning that stick away every 10-20 minutes, I can come over and just push it deeper, push it deeper, push it deeper. I don't even have to be breaking the twigs to feed the flame, which is really freaking cool. So I imagine I could still use the barbecued barquettes, whatever. I don't know what they're called. I can still use the barbecue pieces for this. I can use wood on this. I can use twigs and sticks and stuff like that. So it's kind of a multi-fuel stove, very heavy, not really transportable, but you can see that flame is almost up at the top here, and that's maybe 1.5 foot tall chimney. So I will say this brick is not really warm at all. A little more so warm, and this one's actually quite hot to the touch. This is your combustion stone. Originally, I had said I think I'm going to use the wood ash and try making some concrete cement. It appeared or came to my attention that eventually the ash that I'm going to be used to harvest to make the concrete is actually going to start building up. So if I had this all concreted together, how am I going to get something in there to scoop the wood ash out? So it's probably better not to do that. I guess time will tell. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video on it. I suppose I could block one of these, use the wet vac to blow and just blow all of the ash out. But then I can't collect it and put it in the garden or use it for other purposes. So time will tell. But so far, that is working very, very well. Maybe 1 foot above is quite warm. So we're going to let this burn down a little bit, and we're going to try doing some cooking. All right, so sure, it burns and feeds itself, but will it feed us? Let's put it to work. Not a bad way to spend the day. So with probably an hour's worth of work, some ideally dry wood, and we got some lunch and dinner made, all for the cheap price of free yard clippings. So that is what we have for today. As always, any questions, comments, concerns you have, leave them in the comments section below. This is outside the target demographic. I'll catch you guys in the next video.